every child is different. So, and especially autism is a spectrum. So it depends on the child, at which area or which position on the spectrum. So they they will have to cope with or deal with different kind of challenges. So what I mean is that no single child is same. So we cannot say that because this child is also considered autistic and he do all this and your child should do all this. No, it really depends.
This podcast shares personal stories and professional insights to support your financial well being, but it's not a substitute for personal financial, investment, or legal advice. Everyone's situation is unique. Please seek qualified, independent support that fits your life and goals. The full disclaimer and copyright notice is in the episode notes.
Hello and welcome back to the Financial Health Insight podcast. With Hello and welcome back to the Financial Health Insights podcast. This is the podcast where we explore how to reduce money stress and live well today while we prepare for a good life tomorrow. I'm your host, Kevin Neoh, who is a certified financial coach, licensed financial planner, and today I'm also a proud and a learning parent for this episode. Because in this episode, this is a special episode because as I'm recording this, and the episode will be going live on this Friday, which is the April of 2025. We celebrate Autism Awareness Month. And just 2nd of April was the World Autism Awareness Day. And I want to take this opportunity to share with you a deeply personal and professional story or side of my life. We will in this episode So in this episode, we will talk about what is autism or what autism really is and what it is not, and misconceptions people have or society have about autism, and also how financial planning can support not just the child but the entire family also. And we will also cover how we can make some emotionally grounded move that align our money with what's important for us and reflect on both maybe love and clarity for our own life. So if you know someone who is coping with this journey, who has a child or children who is on the spectrum or has special needs or special attention, or maybe you are wondering if you might be entering or coping with this kind of news soon, this episode is for you. My aim is that this episode can help and become like a resource that equip or prepare parents and caregivers to have a better understanding and also to prepare better in terms of striking a good balance between our own financial health and also taking care of our child who has special needs. So let's begin. Now, so this is a story that I haven't really told anyone until recently. So my son, Kobe, was about 2 years old when we were advised by our doctor during a vaccine visit to book an appointment to see a speech therapist and also to do a hearing test at a hospital. This was the beginning of an unexpected recommendation from a normal vaccine visit for a child who is nearing his 24 months or 2 years old celebration. And this was the time that sort of like kick-started our journey, getting to know ASD or Autism Spectrum Disorder. At the same time, I think like many parents, we heard everything from things like people tell us like boys they tend to talk later. So or sometimes people say he will be okay, he will grow, he will learn later. Some said maybe we should speak only one language at home so that you don't confuse the child. We tend to speak English and Mandarin at home, and sometimes a mixture of some Hokkien. So maybe it can be a possibility that the child confuses. So some suggest that you just focus on one language would do. And then many people, including myself also, would like to believe that because he is COVID baby. In fact, he was born in just the second week of MCO. So this means that he grew up in an environment that's a lack of social interactions, and he see just the same faces every day at home. That this and I was hoping that, or telling myself that, convincing myself that this was the main causes of these observations of speech delay and certain other things. So we heard all sort of different advices from different people, but of course, the right thing to do would be to book the test and make the appointment, which we did rather instantly after the doctor suggested. Um, Now, the thing is, before the appointment to see the speech therapist, I also got a suggestion from someone to see another speech therapist at another center. And I went there also because my friend's sons, had been there before. And the recommendation from this speech therapist is just that to enroll the child to preschool, then the child did immediately, soon enough, show sign of improvement and started talking. So it is this social proof or evidence that made me want to go there, because this is like a success example that alluding to the outcome that I hope to see. So luckily, this speech center, the appointment was available earlier than the first one. So it became the first speech therapy that my son visited, because this slot is slightly earlier. I think a few days earlier only lah. Yeah. So, but we didn't know what to expect. Nonetheless, we just went there with an open mind, with a heart that, racing up and down and something like that. And after the conversation, the therapist told us that while my son was approaching 24 months, he was more like about 9 months old in terms of developmental milestones. Uh, for clarity's sake, developmental milestone means usually a child is able to sit, for example, sit by himself about 7 months old. And if then this is a milestone, developmental milestone. And if a child is able to point finger or start talking at 12 months, then this is a milestone that you want to see that this child is exhibiting or demonstrating. So, and if a 24 months cannot speak yet or cannot point finger, then this means that the developmental milestone maybe is slightly behind or maybe months behind. So this is how you understand what it means by developmental milestone. And some of the developmental milestone that we can easily observe are things like using finger to point, or using his or her own hands to take the things that he or she wants instead of using other people's hands, and etc. So to hear these news was definitely like feeling like struck by lightning, that kind of feeling. So this made me more eager to see the other speech therapists, hoping for a different opinion to be delivered, except that except that the second visit also we were told almost similar thing. So then came the hearing test, which is the final station like that, a different day. We nearly didn't get to do the hearing test, in fact, because my son rejected putting the devices and the sticking of the things on his head. But luckily, just before time ran out, he started to fall asleep. I think that was nearly about 5 p.m. that day. So we managed to get the test done. I still have a photo of him while he was asleep, and then the wire and everything was on his head inside the room there. And it was quite a heart-wrenching moment as well to think back about that visual of that thing. So just like what I thought, his hearing cannot be having issue, and because he would turn his head quite instantly when he heard his Coco Melon or Baby TV music tune or tones on the TV. So his hearing must be fine. However, he don't respond when we call out his name and whatnot. But he can detect the slightest of sound and respond to that. Now, the result also confirmed this. The result was clear. It confirmed my observation and my guess that his hearing is perfectly fine. So it's good to know that the hearing is fine, but it means something else was more concerning and more worrying, because if speech delay is not due to unable to hear our sound or voice, then it could mean that, there's other issue that is causing this delay in learning to speak. Speech is just a sign, one of the many, many symptoms of sign that manifests itself, that maybe it's due to autism. Having a speech delay does not mean it's autism yet. So the second speech therapist that we see suggested that we make an appointment to see a developmental pediatrician. She said that the waiting list is long, so we should seriously consider making one appointment now so that we can still get to see her as soon as possible and start putting down a clear learning and developmental path or plan for Kobe, my son. So true enough, when we agreed, we were shocked. The waiting list was nearly 12 months long, which means by the time my son get to see this doctor, my son would be nearly 3 years old already. Bear in mind, he was just 12. He was just, bear in mind, he was just about turned 2 years old that time. So there's about a 12 months window period. The question is, do we wait until we see the doctor and do nothing in between, or do we want to do something while we are waiting for the appointment to take place? So, at suggestion, we also see an occupational therapist to help my son get support in developing his sensory system in terms of things like your visual, your gross motor skill, or your fine motor skill, and etc. This means another assessment on his developmental level for these areas. And I asked the two speech therapists and the occupational therapist the same question. Since hearing is fine, does this mean that something more serious like autism is something that we should reasonably suspecting? You know, they all have similar answer. That is, they told me that it's not so easy to get diagnosed as autism one, and you need to check. There's a checklist, long checklist, and you need to cross many things in terms to be confirmed that you are on the spectrum. But anyway, they are not the right person to do this diagnosis. So I should focus on waiting for the right professional who are qualified and allowed to do this diagnosis to do their work. So during this time, we focus on therapy. During and I also do some reading on my own time. Before that, before we came to the appointment to see the doctor, we also bring my son to have more exposure to outdoor play, and I couldn't wait until the next year for the appointment to come as well. So our speech therapist also help us to get an appointment to see a clinical psychologist who just returned from US, who has had extensive experience working with autistic child or individuals. So, and my friend and mentor also helped me to get an appointment to see a psychiatrist for adolescents. So the reason I seek out more options is not that I'm impatient, but it's more like I wanted to try to find out what is it that we are facing. Because in my opinion, if we do not know the real thing that you are facing, if you don't have a name for the monster, or you don't know how the monster looks like, it will be very impossible for you to have a clear path or to formulate a strategy for you to take down the monster. So I wanted that clarity or the peace of mind of knowing what is it that we are working on. And the fact is, there are only just few people who are allowed and qualified to provide a formal and proper diagnosis of these things. So I just needed them to see my son, or I just needed my son to see them, all right, one way or another. The appointment with the psychiatrist got postponed in the last minute because of some emergency for the doctor that the doctor had. While the psychologist, right, we did saw her in September 2022. She was very quickly able to summarize for us that my son is on the spectrum. I think she was not a good fit with us in the way how we communicate and whatnot. So we did not continue with her suggestion to come for therapy with her, but we stick on with our initial team instead. And then the next month, we enrolled my son to a preschool in October 2022. Then came the end February of 2023, where the appointment with the doctor finally came. Eventually, we were told of the diagnosis. which is my son is on the ASD spectrum, autism spectrum disorder. So, and I can say this: no one prepared us for that moment, and no one is prepared for that moment. And it is definitely something that is not expected during pregnancy as well. For sure, it is a very sharp contrast compared to the kind of emotions and happiness you feel when you hear or confirm the news of pregnancy versus this one, to know about this news, right? It is like an emotional roller coaster that is really very top and very bottom there. So some of the emotions will come up as well at this moment, as it slowly sink in. Fear, fear of not knowing what to expect. You feel guilt. I feel guilt. I feel guilt of maybe it is me that caused this. I'm also in denial. I would constantly be looking out for signs to dismiss that this is wrong, this assessment is wrong, this diagnosis is wrong, because how can you just spend about 1 hour with the child and you can tell about some opinion or recommendation or conclusion that affects his whole life, Whereas I'm the one who spent most of the time with the child. I know a lot more about him than this 1 hour of time you have with him. So also grief, feeling pity, feeling sad, and as all these things, I think we felt it all. I felt it all. I wondered things like, if I had done something wrong. I asked myself if I missed this sign earlier, or if I could have done more earlier. I blame myself. I also ask myself questions like, what if, why not you notice it earlier, or why not you do this and do that so that you could have prevented it? Is it because you, for the sake of protection and safety, you decided that it's very risky to go out to mall and whatnot, so we stay at home most of the time and we only go out during hours that are less people and less crowded? Is it all these things that actually slowly and secretly and silently contributed to all the symptoms that we are dealing with now? Is it too much of screen time because you have to work, and then the child, my son, like it, the YouTube, the videos and whatnot. So we also let him enjoy some of these things. Is it all these things that actually adds up, and make create the situation that we were dealing with? So, and when I look at myself and I look at my wife, we know both of us felt a very strong emotions, and these are all the emotions that are not, you wouldn't say that it's a positive emotions, and my own fears will mirror back to me through my wife's eyes as well, and vice versa. So then you have people who are kind enough, who wants you to feel good and comfort you. So they will offer us some well-meaning advice, like uh, maybe give some time, like I said earlier, boys talk later. Maybe you will see changes later. Maybe he will show you his strength later or whatnot. Maybe maybe you look around my neighbor children also like that last time, but now they are okay. So maybe you can try this and don't do this. So there are a lot of opinion, a lot of suggestion, a lot of advice, a lot of sharing, a lot of positive light shining to us. So it seems like these are all the good things, and I know it all comes from good intention and good place. But as the more I study about the implications, the more I feel bad, and the more hopeless I felt. The weight just became heavier for reason I cannot explain clearly and in good way. So I know the intention for all these advices and words are meant to do good things, but sometimes I think uh, we every child is different. So, and especially autism is a spectrum, so it depends on the child, at which area or which position on the spectrum. So they will have to cope with or deal with different kind of challenges. So what I mean is that no single child is same. So we cannot say that because this child is also considered autistic and he do all this and your child should do all this. No, it really depends what kind of challenges they are dealing with, what kind of barrier or developmental challenges they have. So you need to figure out a way to individualize their plan for them. All right. It's like I am strong with my right hand, so you need to teach me how to use my left hand. But if I'm already very strong with my left hand, you try to trick my left hand, then you are actually putting my right hand become even weaker. So you need to find out what is it that we need to pay attention to. So no, not a single child is the same. So all these suggestions is meant to do well, like I said, but it's not the same. All right. So then there's also the kind of feeling that I went through is like, why me? Why him? Why us? That kind of moment. Then maybe it's too much of screen time. Maybe I also start to find ways to blame myself, like maybe I allow why did I give him so much of screen time? Why did I have so many virtual appointment that time during the MCO helping other people? And maybe I'm too heavy, or maybe I'm too old, maybe this, maybe that, and all the thoughts just keep coming in. I think the reason was simple, just to find out a reason to blame and to assign responsibility so that I can feel either better when I look at my son, or I can feel better because I cannot know what to expect of the whole situation. So if I can find something to blame on, I have a bit more control in that sense. So eventually, I came to a decision that I can continue to search for the answers. I can continue to find who to blame, what to blame, or what else. But I must continue to focus on the ball. I must continue to focus on what we can do during the moment in time. So the doctor suggested us to enroll for ABA, Applied Behaviors Analysis, or Early Intervention Program, EIP. She provided a list for us. So we called all of the centers on the list. Some of them were too busy to respond. Some of them must make sure we pay them a sum of money before we can even visit them. We do all that. We comply with all the requirements and all the terms and conditions, and we started to shop for the right center to get support for my son Kobe. So the time came for us to learn about the cost for the one-to-one programs, and they are rather astronomically high. It can go up to 11,000 for a 5 day, 6 hours per day program. 11,000 a month, and it's for every month. So it's not a one-off commitment like that. And these programs typically exclude lunch hour, and they don't include lunch and hour because they are not school, you see. They are more like a special needs education sector. So you have to take care of the lunch as well. So if you go in the morning, you have to make sure that you are there by lunch hour to either bring the child to have lunch nearby, or to prepare lunch and bring that, finish the lunch, serve the lunch to the child, and then send him back to the center after lunch hour. So it's like an adult going for work. I think that means it could be a huge commitment, either financially or also time, and also energy, and mentally for the parents as well. And then you have to, and then we had to make this decision within a very short time window. We didn't want to delay. So I think it's important for us to be mindful about this. Maybe I will share more on how you can guide yourself when it comes to this situation in a later part of this episode. But for now, I just want to say this clearly, which is autism is not a disease. It's not something for you to cure. It's not like having fever or having another sickness or whatnot. It is a neurodevelopmental differences or disorder, which means your neural system, which is like the very important things that control how we can function as a human, it is not developed 100% or completely. So there are some areas that are underdeveloped, or some areas that is maybe I'm not the right person to explain this, but this is how I understand. So it changes, or it affects how we see, how we hear, how we feel, or how we touch, or how we interact with people, with the world. So that is why, if you have these conditional challenges or barriers, you cannot treat it. What we can do is try to find ways to develop what is underdeveloped. Try to find way to support how to function better in the world and to navigate this world together with the child or the kids. So what our kids needs most, I think, is not fixing because they cannot cure. So it's not fixing. They are not. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't have a disease to fix to cure. Is they needed support. They needed more development. They needed developmental support and support that comes from the parents and caregiver. I think is super important and crucial, and it is so life changing, not just for the child but also for the family as well. And And this is so important because, like I mentioned earlier, the cost for therapy is not something that you can easily brush away. All right, it can become a heavy burden to people as well. But of course, there's also a public healthcare system. There's also some agency or some center that can provide subsidized program as well. But if you are going to look into this path, or you are already on this path, you will know that it requires a lot of commitment in time and energy and also money. So maybe some of us may have this question: if this is so overwhelming and intensive capitally or time and whatnot, why would you want to still do it, right? Just yesterday, someone asked me, why do you still want to spend the money on therapy when autism, you know that it can't be cured? You could have used this money to buy property or invest into this or that, and buy some cryptocurrency. That was what the question or the opinion or the thoughts or misconception that I received yesterday when we had a face-to-face conversation. But like I said, it's something that not for you to cure, all right? So it's for us to develop, to support it. So I think it's important that we hear this and we talk about this because it helps to set the stage right. Right now, the person who said this, he or she thought that this is a very harsh thing to say because and the people might get angry after hearing this. I think I can understand why. I really do. It's true. Just maybe like some people may wonder why people would want to spend a lot of money on treatment for senior citizen or patients with major illnesses, that have very slim chance of surviving. Why would people still want to spend money on this treatment and getting treated, right? So just like also why people still line up to buy lottery, knowing that the chance to win is quite slim. And it's also just like, we know that it's very serious offense to commit tax evasion, but people still do it nonetheless, right? So we do something knowing that we cannot have the perfect outcome, but we still do it. Why? And I think it's very important to explain through this platform why, while you cannot eliminate the conditions of autism, it's a lifelong conditions that the child needs to live with. But then why do parents still need to consider or seriously consider providing the support for the child? Now, the first reason I can think of is that because autism is just a challenge along the road. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. So the fact is that a child who is on the spectrum, they have developmental conditions or challenges. They learn differently. They have certain challenges in terms of how they perceive or interpret the signals they receive from for their eyes or for their senses and whatnot. But they can learn. They can learn. They have brains capable of change, capable of picking up new skills, learn new things. And that is what we call, and every one of us who are considered yourself normal is the same. This is what people call neuroplasticity. It is our brain's ability to reorganize itself and form new connections, neuron connections throughout our life. That's how we learn new things, right? When we repeat an activity like practicing eye contact or lifting something too many times, you start to learn, you start to have more muscle and whatnot. You start to do the things of the task better. It is because of neuroplasticity in how our ability to learn and adapt into something our environment as well. So practicing eye contact, responding to name calling, learning to demand for thing or request for thing. These are things that I have seen my son show all this improvement, and these are the things that we teach them or they learn in the center and the therapy, repeat enough of time, they pick up the skill. So they can learn. So it's especially powerful when we see that young children at certain age, right, the the brain is even better at learning and remolding itself to form new wire and expand the skill set and whatnot. So the ability is not fixed. It can be learned, it can be expected. So that's the first reason. Second reason is the earlier we support them, the more skills they can develop. Early childhood is actually like a golden window period and it's closing up as and when our son grow older. So this is the best time when learning, adapting, and behavioral shaping are at the most effective stage. When we provide enough structured support like speech therapy or occupational therapy during this phase or these years, right? We are not just like reacting for them to learn passively, but we are actually actively, proactively making sure that these abilities, these capabilities is getting the best optimal resources so that they can learn faster and learn more and develop better. Third, thirdly, I said to this person as well, as a parents, I think we acknowledge that our role is to do what's best for our child, what we think best for them. And while we cannot control the outcome, but we can certainly control what we want to do or what kind of parents we want to be. I like to say this thing that children, they cannot choose what family or what parents they have. They are just born into the family, right? At the same time, as a parents, we also cannot control what kind of children we receive or have. But we are able to decide what kind of parents we want to be. And challenges call for us, and we can decide whether we want to respond to it proactively or we want to respond to it by avoiding or just forgetting about our responsibility at the same time. So we can help them to support them to communicate, to regulate, to interact, and navigate this world. I think this is something that we can decide whether we want to do or don't want to do, and I choose to do so. And I think many parents who have children who are neurodivergent also are committed to doing this, and that's why we see many stories nowadays also, right? And I think number four, like I always share in this podcast, money is not just about money itself, it's not just about number, it's about our belief, it's about our emotions. So people who say that therapy, or people who see therapy or treatment, right, as an expense instead of is investing for our future or someone, I think this person may be looking at money as a very important thing in the life, but forget that actually in life it's just not about money. And as far as providing the therapy and support is concerned, it actually help improve quality of life for the whole family as well as the future outlook for the child's prospect. And I think that's the most important and priceless thing you can actually use your money to do, use your money to achieve. I mean, I would ask this question that if a person have a lot of money in the world, but they can have less money but have more time with their loved ones or have their loved ones come back from life to life, right? Sometimes I think not all people will choose to have just keep more money with them, right? Or more health for that matter. And I think it's also important to remember that we don't know what's the future going to happen. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The world is changing fast. 2, 3 years ago, when my son was diagnosed, I think ChatGPT was not even born yet. It was only started in November 2022. So we don't know, like 20 years later or 30 years later, what is it going to happen? What kind of new breakthrough or new technology or new method would be there, genetic or DNA, program therapy, whatever, right? So just like 20 years ago, I think most people did not even understand what autism was. To them, maybe it's like someone who is different means they are weird. But actually, now we understand better that someone who is different than us does not mean they are weird. It's maybe because less of them, so it makes them minority. But the pace of diagnosis and the breakthrough also have, you can see the number of people who got diagnosed nowadays is risen a lot also. So today we have advanced interventions, we have better platforms and programs and more therapies, to provide the right support and offer the right support to these individuals who are on the spectrum, or they have developmental challenge, or they are just more difficulties for them to learn something compared to other people. So these offer a good chance for them to pick up new skills and learn new things compared to maybe 20, 30 years ago when these supports are not readily available. So we will see that it's really difficult for us to see evidence that actually they can learn new things. Actually they can. Now we see that. Last time maybe not. So forget about what's happened in the past. Sometimes we need to be more aware about the sign and signal around us based on the world we are currently living in. And these signals and evidences may tell us that actually if you do the right thing, then you will probably going to see some result coming up compared to if you do nothing, then obviously you won't see any meaningful changes at all. And with all the evidence, we can now see that children who are on the spectrum, they can learn, they can grow, they can thrive, they can also do work, you know. So if we meet them at where they are and help them to take one step at a time, they can be a member of the society who contributes back. And one thing I cannot deny for sure is my son bring me a lot of happiness and to our family as well. So you have to make your own judgment. But I think if you are not in our shoe, you will not really understand that, right? So now I think I spent quite a lot of time talking about what is autism and what is not, and to discuss some of the myth or misconception. Now let's look into the money part of it, okay? Now it's just not about having enough money, because we can never have sufficient money for all our desire or the ones that we have in life, right? No matter who you are. But maybe it's more about uh, knowing how to organize and plan the money or resources you have to match your needs, or your child needs, your goals, and your emotional capacity. So let's take this in a step-by-step approach. Basically, like many big major events in life that we go through, there is a 4 stages that we eventually will navigate through. They are this stage called anticipation, ending, passage, and new normal. Anticipation stage refers to the time that we are anticipating something will happen, or about to happen, or we are suspecting. Then we go to do our research, do our homework, confirming the sign, we prepare for what if and whatnot, and we are getting the emotional readiness and whatnot in check, in place. So that's anticipation. This is the first stage. And then it will come the ending stage. Ending stage refers to when the event that we are anticipating, it really happened, or it didn't happen, or we confirm that it won't happen. So the life that we knew before is ended already. Your life changed already. Your situation, your circumstances will now come to an end and have a new one possible coming up. And things around you or around your life will start to become unfamiliar to you. So this is where we start to enter into passage. Passage means you are like, imagine you're on the boat, you are floating on the river, you are passing to the next station, whatnot. So you begin to explore different options, different way to get from point A to point B, transition through these events or these big news, big changes. Eventually, you will find a proper way or a better way, and then you settle down with this way, and it becomes your new way of life. Hence, the new normal. So, and then another big event, you go through the anticipation, ending, passage, and new normal again. This is how the cycle is working for us. So the thing is that during the passage part, right, we may feel like there's many things we can do or we want to do, which is true. But this is also the time that I think we must have a good understanding about what is really important to us. Uh, because when we navigate through the passage time, there are so many ways, so many options, so many decisions to make. You want to make sure you make the decision that really matches your values or gives you protect what is really most important to you. For example, I give you an example to help you relate better. Someone who is graduating now, that is their ending because they just finished their life as a student. And their passage, right, may include options to, for example, work in Singapore, work in their hometown, or work in Klang Valley. So it's important because now you have options. It's very difficult. You need to make a choice. All right. Some choices you make and you may easily regret. Some choices you make and then you're very happy with it. So this is the time that you need to find out what is really very important to you. What is the thing that you want to protect or preserve and continue to have in your life. So for example, if this person feel like being close to family is very important, so this person may say no to working overseas, even though the financial reward is a lot better, times 3 point something, right? So he or she may choose to either work in Klang Valley or is very far away, maybe go back to hometown and work so that can stay with the family, you know. So this is I hope this is how I can help you to relate better to what I mean by the example of uh, anticipation, ending, passage, and new normal. So here's what you can do or use as a reference if you are navigating through this financial passage, you know, coping with the news or the confirmation that your child has special needs or needs special needs or needs special support. Number one, you can split your planning into phases, right? Try to plan uh, when we try to think about the next 10 years or 20 years, I think it can feel overwhelming because it's so long of time, so many things happen in between. How do we know? So it's very difficult for us to focus and feel safe to think about that. So that's why I think you should, help yourself to focus on shorter stages or time. Start with not just 1 year, 2 year, start with maybe 6 months or 12 months. All right. What are the therapies the child needs during this 6 month or 12 months period? What are the goals that are realistic during this time? From there, we can reassess and adjust accordingly. For instance, if the sensory developments are lacking, or needing the most of the support, then perhaps you want to prioritize on these first, not other things. So for our work planning, we introduce other element for my son, like the social element in preschool and even after we started ABA, right? It took about a year before we started looking to add more ABA hours for him. Uh, I think based on my research and understanding, the suggestion is that at least they should receive about 20 to 25 hours per week. So my son started with a 3 hours a day program for 5 days, so it's only 15 hours a week. But we also waited until about a year in the center, then we only started to add more hours for him. Because I think it's important we wait for our child to tell us that they are now ready to receive more compared to we just give more, give more, and give more. That will be very exhausting financially and mentally and also emotionally. So after we added the more hours for the ABA program, we also added a group session also about a year after we have started. So let your child and his or her progress tell you when he or she is ready for more. Not for us to throw everything at one go. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing as well, right? Now, in the beginning, maybe in the beginning of the journey, maybe it will be more on assessment, registration and other fees and adjusting to your new routine and whatnot. Then perhaps so between year 2 and 6 or 7 years old, that period, right? Maybe there will be more commitments or requirement needed for more intensive sessions and therapy program and support. Then they will come into the schooling age. This one I think will be more the education path for us to choose. But the point is this, I think it's a one step at a time thing. It is not for us to, want to plan every stage at one go. Because you cannot jump to third step without the step in the middle. And without knowing what's the progress in the second step, it's very difficult for you to make a choice on the third step. Okay, so let yourself give yourself the permission to take it one step at a time. Allocate your time, your resources, your money, your energy, one step at a time, so that you don't feel totally overwhelmed suddenly. All right. Second, I think it's very important to have clarity. Getting a diagnosis is super important to me, like I mentioned earlier, because without knowing what we are dealing with, it can be so difficult for you to find out what is the right step to take next. So getting a proper diagnosis helps us to know what is needed for now. It can help us to find out how much of our money, time, energy need to allocate to who and to where. Okay, so that's the good thing of getting having good clarity. It helps us know exactly how much we are spending on what and why. Why are you spending this on this thing? If you spend for a purpose, then you will find ways to pay for it. Without clarity, it's very easy for us to overspend as well. Okay, because when you don't have a clear boundary, it's very difficult for you to control your finances too. Thirdly, is I think it's good to manage our commitments. Some parents they sacrifice their whole financial safety net. Others delay their intervention because they fear of what to expect or it's too much for them to support. Neither extreme is sustainable. If you spend everything, it's not wise. If you don't spend anything, it's not good. So I think it's good to have a balance, and you can get a balance when you start to put the numbers down into a piece of paper and find out what is important for you now. Then you started to allocate it. The structured plan gives us confidence to act wisely, and also less uncertainty in that sense, less fear or less guilt when you spend your money on yourself also. For instance, you may want to build up savings as a buffer for a therapy fee for the next 1 year so that you can be sure no matter what happens in the next 1 year, whether it's accident, job loss or whatnot, the therapy cost is going to be covered or prepared. The money is there because commitments on loans, if you can, maybe you want to take a back seat. Let's say you plan to buy a new house or new car. Maybe these are the time or these are the things that you can have to, take a back seat for a little while. Because if your child is in the period of time where you have to allocate most resources for the therapy, then your resources are in competition with one another. And that's why you need to have a clear list of what's important and allocate based on your priority. And number four, don't forget about yourself. Maybe you wanted to work fewer hours. Maybe you have other children to take care of as well. Maybe you also want to spend time to maintain your marriage, to keep it strong. Also, these are the goals that are valid, as very important to not forget about them in your financial plan. Identify all these other things that is not relevant to the child but more about yourself, parents or caregiver, are super important because it allows us to mindfully allocate our resources toward these areas that are so crucial. It may seem like the child is everything and need the most of our support, but I think the truth is that we should not forget about we are the most important person to provide for the child also, and therefore your sense of well-being, your health, your mental health, physical health and financial health must not be ignored or neglected. From There's a saying, we cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to put in effort and time to care for yourself, because this is a journey. It's not a marathon. If you focus on running a very fast sprint, you might feel good, okay? But you cannot run continuously for a long time. So you may have to give up halfway, or you may no longer have the stamina to continue later. And that's not a good thing, right? I think most importantly, the child is not here to suck out the life from the parents and caregiver. They're actually here to add more life to us, more happiness also. Yeah, you might find it hard to relate to it, but if you are going through this kind of journey, then you may understand a bit better what I mean. So many parents also ask me a question like this that can be tough. How do I make financial decisions without feeling like I'm choosing between my child and the rest of my family? How do we not feel selfish? So I think in the previous episode, my guest, who is a senior clinical psychologist, Jean, also shared with us self-care is not selfish. So the guilt is real, but we also have to reframe how we look at things. It's essential. You know, the child needs us. So we cannot forget to maintain ourselves, because you have to make sure you are there at a tip-top condition so that you can really provide for the child. So imagine someone who is not emotionally present. How do we provide the good experience for the child to learn better, right? So let's start here. We are not just a parent to a child who is on the spectrum. We are also a partner, a sibling, a worker, a friend. We are also a human being. So at the rest of our life, don't have to be put on hold or on pause just because one part of it needs extra support. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. So it's important to have a clear sense of where our money is going to. So on this, do practice prepare a spending plan for your whole family. So if you want to know more about doing this, you don't have to do anything. You just need to look back to the previous week episode, which I'll put into the show note. There's an episode called Give Every Ringgit a Job. Okay? This is exactly how you can use as a guide to set up your spending plan. So the spending plans mean you divide your money into different categories. You can start with very basic one, just number one, essential or basic expenses, things that you cannot run away and must pay. Second thing, your savings. Third thing is your lifestyle, your enjoy, your spending, your choice based on guilt-free spending. I love to call that. Fourth one is for something that's unexpected. So you have this four category, you have your income, you give every ringgit a job, tell them which category to go into. So as a basic guideline, I think it's very likely your essential, which include the therapy and support, right, for the child, is going to be easily touching 50% or more. That would mean something between the saving, the enjoyment, the guilt-free spending part, and unexpected one. I think unexpected one you can hardly avoid also. So something between the other two have to give way a little bit. But it's just a guideline. It's for us to continuously play with it so that you can eventually find out a good balance for yourself. This method, right, it helps us to not forget about having fun at the same time. Having fun at the same time and also not forget about caring for yourself, that we also need some fun in our life as well. You know, so so take a listen to the previous week episode, how to prepare, how to give every ringgit a job, how to practice this. It will be incredibly helpful as you go along this. And if you try to do this, and then you eventually realize that no matter how I try to allocate, the essential just take up most of my income, that will probably be a good sign for you to think about how you can increase your income as well. So a friend told me this morning, and I quote, I always believe that they are born with their mission and we are born with our own mission. Their mission needs our participation and our mission needs their participation. And eventually we will find out that we are part of each other's mission and it is reciprocal. So I also heard I also heard of this analogy that if we pull a rubber band too hard and too long, our finger will feel pain, number one, and the rubber band will snap eventually. Now the idea is that we have to find out what is the optimal level of stress. And I think we get to that step by step with clarity and options. Stress level will be more balanced and in check if you do that. So I also mentioned just now, we cannot pour from an empty cup. So many parents burn out because they are too afraid to think about themselves. But the truth is, when you are exhausted, when you are anxious, when you are financially worried and unstable, it will definitely very soon it will affect the child. So self-care is super important. It's not an indulgence. It's just part of being responsible parents. Okay? Now, planning is super important. I think we cannot emphasize that more than enough. When you know your limits, you get creative sometimes. Imagine, how you squeeze your toothpaste. When it's new, we just don't care, right? But when it's getting very little, some of us will cut it out. Some of us squeeze here and there to get that a little bit of extra toothpaste. So that's how you get creative when your resources start to show you that they are a little bit limited now. So for my own experience, I learned to cook. I learned to explore mixing, catering, and buying dinner from outside. And I also learned to analyze my dining out expenses. And I realized that it takes about 68,000 a year. And to me, it's quite a lot, but you wouldn't have known it until you look at the number confronting that, right? So how so I explore how integrating home cooking and on weekday and also dining out on weekend and public holiday. It helps to keep still maintain a good life of experience, but it can save me about 30,000 in expenses for dinners itself. Maybe in practicality in real life, it won't be exactly 30,000. Maybe it's lesser, maybe it's a little bit more, but the point is it will be definitely more than if I have never done this or never figured out, wow, I spent this much for dining out for dinner. So it's just one way I try, and there are many other things that I try as well. So use this as a guide. Remember, prepare a spending plan, have a plan for your support based on the priority, what is important, and listen and let your child tells you when he or she is ready for more. All right. I know it can feel reassuring that we just do everything we can at one go, but we also have to acknowledge that the most important condition is for them to tell you that they are now ready for a different level or second level of learning or to learn more. You know, don't forget that you still have a life to take care of, and you still have other goals in your family as well, and you still need to build your financial security and safety net as well, and to look at everything in the overall picture and don't in a way that we don't compromise other areas, right? I think talking with a licensed financial planner is super important, because when you prepare a proper financial plan, usually it means you are going to have a lifetime cash flow of your whole family and your in and out map out in front of you, so that you can really take a peek into how your future financial stability going to look like. And if certain years you really need a lot more commitments, or like when you explore going into international school or private school versus special needs school, you can then make a better decision on, if I go this path, this is going to be the additional gap that I have to work for the next few years. And you don't feel like this is okay for you or achievable, you explore different options. So having a proper financial life planning exercise, right, will help us to be able to take a look into the future and then look at it and find out which version is actually doable and uh, feel okay, reasonable enough for us to pursue. Then we can then plan our actions plan accordingly. So it can help us to figure out in terms of savings, spending, income, and the debt level, and how to grow our network so that we will have enough resources for all the important things in our life. Okay, so you don't have to you don't have to really find a financial planner also can, but you can also pull out piece of blank paper, maybe ask yourself things like, when do you want to retire, what kind of travel or lifestyle do you want to or hope to enjoy or keep during this number of years, next few years, as you continue to support your child. You can also ask yourself, how do I want my marriage or family dynamic to look like, maybe like 10 years from now, or can I afford to have another child? And what if another child also have similar challenges? And how will these affect my financial stability and whatnot? So you can include all these important things on your bucket list in your plan, and then we can build it up and see whether how possible it is, or whether which area or which year you might actually need more money, and how you can prepare for it and start early and work closer to it. So, okay, I think this is going to be the longest episode ever. Let's get a bit more practical ideas also. So, remember, a spending plan is not just a budget, it's the way for us to visualize and imagine how we want to assign every ringgit to which area or job. So, your spending plan should include things like your essential, your enjoy choice-based or guilt-free spending, your hobby, your eating out, your savings for your future important other goals, and your unplanned expenses. Therapy expenses fall under the essential, so you need to have a good feeling about that. And when your income is really not sufficient for you to take care of all these things, then you know that cutting expenses will not give you a meaningful outcome already. It is possibly a time that you need to confront yourself and get honest with yourself. Is it the income problem? Could could you uh, increase your income through what way? Is there any new skills that you can learn, and then maybe it can help you to increase your income? Or is there any qualification training that you should help yourself to acquire so that you can get a promotion or whatnot? Or if you have any hobby or skills that people willingly pay for your strength or skills, if let's say you like to cook, you like to bake, maybe this can be something that you do extra during your weekend time or whatnot. So through financial planning, we can also explore whether a person or one of the spouse can take a sabbatical leave and then join back the workforce later. So, or you can someone step down from full time and do more part time or freelancing or the gig economy, and also provide the flexibility for the whole family. So in the past episode, I also talk about increasing our income or finding extra income during the job transition episode. I will put into the show note as well. Okay, because building income gives us more breathing space. Because cutting expenses is not the answer most of the time. Sometimes there will be a time that cutting expenses will beat the limit that it can have. So start looking into it. And then I think another thing is to look into the legacy planning part, because I think as a parent with a young child or children who have special needs, one of the most helpless questions you can think of is what happened when you're no longer here. I think this is something that burden everyone who's wearing the similar shoe, right? So the most important thing, must make sure you have a will, because a will allow us to appoint legal guardians to take care of our children. After a will, it's not enough, because guardianship by law is below 21 years old. So if you want to provide and make sure that your child, when they are adult and even when they are older and the parents no longer around, someone will be here to take care of them, you may need to consider setting up a special need trust. Okay, and then a special need trust allows us to appoint a trustee to safeguard the resources that we prepare for the child. Okay, and you appoint the trustee to pay the money, right, according to our wishes through the trust deed document. And you can also appoint a protector to become like a watchdog on how the trustee is functioning and make sure that they play their role right, okay, to have a check and balance. So if you are worried about setting a trust, most people will say, where do I find this money to put into the trust now? Or the trustee will have fees. Of course, no one do works for free, right? So what you can do is to shop for life insurance policy, pure protection policy, term policy, and you can calculate how much you need to support the child for therapy, for living expenses, for healthcare and education expenses. And then you add on the trustee fee for maybe 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years, then you get this sum assured protected. And you can assign this policy into the trust. So, because these are things that we need to happen and be there when the parents no longer around. So just need life insurance on our life, the parents' life, so that when the parents no longer alive, the insurance money will go into the trust and become the main trust asset. And this is where the money for the children's support and everything comes from. That means even today you don't have 1 million, 2 million, or 5 million, it's okay. But if you can shop for life insurance policy that provide this amount of coverage, when the day we no longer alive, this money is likely to still be there to help you to continue to provide support and take care of your special needs child. Okay, so if you need some advice or need to discuss more about this, just find someone who's qualified, like me, will do. I understand your concern also. So we can have a chat and I can share with you some example and how it can work for you. All right. A good financial planner can help you to have clarity and find out how or which way or which options really suits to your need. Okay. So if you're still with me, thank you very much. I know this episode is going to be too long, but I also know it has to be, because the message behind this is so important, it matters. autism definitely changed my life, my wife's life, my family's life, my son's life, and many parents around the world as well. But it does not change us to limit us. It actually makes us stronger. We find out ways to be a better person. Many times, people think that the child needs us to teach them new things. They learn from us, no doubt. But you will be surprised how many times I learned from my son. Okay, the never give up, the optimism, how to do things that beyond his comfort zone, but he still try nonetheless. These are things that many adults can learn. Okay, it's not easy. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's expensive. But yes, you will find that behind all this, you can say it's worth it. So to every parent who is listening, do know this: you are not alone. You are doing your best. You will do better also because we improve every day. You are also allowed to plan for yourself as you take care of your child. Financial planning is not a luxury. You're listening to this for free. You don't have to pay. It's not a luxury. It's not a luxury. Uh, it's a process. It's a journey that is essential. And also want to take this opportunity to share with you guys. Um, I also quite blessed. So 2 days ago, I also created a new podcast with my co-hosts Carmen and Sinyi, who are special needs specialists and also behavioral specialists. So we created and rolled out a podcast called Adapting Together. I will put the link of this show in the show notes as well. Now, Adapting Together is a podcast who aim to normalize and raise awareness about autism in Malaysia. We will feature experts, professionals who are specialized in talking about this, who are specialized in sharing more information about this to empower parents to really have a better journey, whether it's emotionally, financially, or just in terms of medicine wise and science based wise or evidence based wise. So do take a because I cannot say take a read. Do take a listen or watch this. I'll put the link of the podcast as well as the YouTube channel there. Do follow us. Do share with people who are dealing with and coping with this journey. Okay. And until next time, take care. Reduce your money stress. Manage it well. Nurture better financial health. Live well today and tomorrow. Signing out. Bye bye.
This podcast shares personal stories and professional insights to support your financial well being, but it's not a substitute for personal financial, investment, or legal advice. Everyone's situation is unique. Please seek qualified, independent support that fits your life and goals. The full disclaimer and copyright notice is in the episode notes.